Mitchell. Up to 8 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to make just three brief points. The first one, Mr. Speaker, is that I have completely changed my mind on this subject since I entered the House during the last century. And the reason for that is that I've sat in my advice surgery and I have had tears pouring down my face listening to constituents who have set out so clearly, speaking with such emotion about how their mother, brother, father or child has died in great pain and great indignity. And I strongly support this bill. I want to congratulate the Honourable Lady for the excellent way in which she has presented it. But I believe that we should give our constituents, our fellow citizens, this choice. I want this choice for my constituents. I want it for those whom I love. And indeed, I want it perhaps one day, Mr. Speaker, for myself. The current law forces people... I'm not giving away, I'm afraid. The current law forces people to plan their deaths in secret. Their bodies are found by their loved ones. They often die in the most horrific circumstances. They have no chance to say goodbye to their loved ones. It is devastating for their families. And the former Health Secretary commissioned the Office of National Statistics to try and find out how many people who committed suicide every year were dying people, and the figure was between 300 and 650. The second point I want to make is this. In our democracy, it is we, the Commons, who must make this decision. It is only we, elected by our constituents, who have the legitimacy to do this. It is not the DPP, it is not the CPS, it is not the police, doctors or even unelected members of the House of Lords. It is this House of Commons that must make this decision. And let us be clear, Mr. Speaker, that we, all of us on both sides of this debate, strongly support the increase in the quality and extent of palliative care. For me, this debate is about extending choice. Choice in very narrow circumstances, as the Honourable Lady has so clearly set out. The choice not to be forced to end your life in pain and indignity, and in very narrow and heavily regulated circumstances, as this bill sets out. There is no element in this bill that talks about intolerable suffering. Many believe that this bill is too narrowly drawn. I stand by the Honourable Lady's drafting. We remember that in Oregon there has been no serious attempt to change or amend the law. I had the privilege of speaking to an NHS consultant last year on the day before she headed to Dignitas. And she said this, Madam Deputy Speaker. She said, "I love my country, but I object very strongly to my country forcing me to make this choice today that I have to travel unaccompanied to a foreign country to die." Madam Deputy Speaker, the status quo is cruel and dangerous. People caught up in these circumstances, they have no transparency, there's no regulation, there's no safeguards, there's no oversight. In this bill today, there are a whole series of safeguards which are not present at the moment. And the third and final point I want to make is this. Today, we decide on a principle. If this bill does not go through at second reading, that will be the end of the matter for many years. And we would do so in the knowledge, Madam Deputy Speaker, that Scotland, the Isle of Man, Jersey, many other countries are likely to bring in legislation like this. There are 300 million people in 30 jurisdictions who have secured this ability to choose. There will be numerous safeguards. There will not be a slippery slope unless this Parliament agrees to there being one. And if we agree to a second reading today, in my judgment, it is inconceivable that the government front bench will not ensure that we have the proper time to scrutinise this bill. This bill, Madam Deputy Speaker, goes with the grain of our constituents' views, something like 75% according to the most recent polling. There is an opportunity and a chance to consider in detail these matters, as the Honourable Lady has set out, ahead of the third reading. And as drafted, it seems to me to be a very modest and controlled proposal. And let us not forget this. Oregon shows us that less people take these steps once they know they've got this choice, this backup. Madam Deputy Speaker, I end by something I have never forgotten. Some years ago, speaking in a debate, listening in a debate to a young man who had recently lost his father. And he said this. He said that he had visited his father, he'd seen him in great pain and indignity, and he had seen him 3 days before he died, and in the end he put a bag over his head and he used his dressing gown cord to hang himself. And he said this to all of us. He said, if you are ever in this position, let's hope that God will help you, because they certainly won't. This House today has the opportunity to ensure that they will. Yeah.